celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Friday, December 20th, 2019. And here are some of today's trends in the news on the market front. In Asia, it's mixed. In Europe, it's up. And in the USA, up, up, up. Gold down a little bit. Bitcoin hanging in that $7,000 a current range. And oil, beep, just down a little. S&P jumps to another record. Wall Street also got a boost after President Trump tweeted he had, quote, a very good talk with Chinese President Xi about the U.S.-China trade deal. And Trump and Chinese officials said last week that both countries agreed to the so-called Phase 1 deal that will be signed next month. This deal is going to mean absolutely very little to changing the global economic standard. It only affected 0.7 to 0.9% of the global GDP. So it's not going to have that big an effect. There's other things that are driving the markets up. And what else do we have? The S&P 500 is up nearly 28.5 year to date. So things are looking good. But you know why? How about all that cheap repo money there shooting into the markets overnight? No. Only they just reported another $2.93 trillion from 2 days ago to now, January 18th. And they already pumped in over $3 trillion into the repo markets, the Federal Reserve gang, since September 17th. And what boosted the markets up a bit more? House passes trade pact with bipartisan support. That's the new North American trade agreement that both houses overwhelmingly approved. Again, this is going to have very, very little effect, as I forecast, on the global economy. Oil fell on Friday, but it's still up there pretty much. As you well know, from being a Trends Journal subscriber and being on top of the news and ahead of the trends, the OPEC gang over there and the members, they cut back another 500,000 barrels a day on top of the 1.2 million barrels a day that they were holding back. So now they're saying that oil is in the range where they think it's going to be stabilized, but here's the deal. If oil prices keep going up, and wages, as we well know, real wages are way down, this is going to have a very strong negative effect on the consumer segment. So, gold, it's up 15% this year, but right now people aren't looking for much of a safe haven because they're pumping in all that cheap dough around the world as central banksters keep lowering rates. And again, in the United States, the whole repo scam, the overnight traders get the money from between 1.5 to 1.75%, while we, the little people, got to pay those very high credit card deals. And if you're in that, payday loan thing, you get screw day loan because those rates go up as high as over 600%. Fed gears up to double its repo interventions. There we go. As I was saying, Fed gears up to give the money junkies more fix to keep the scam going. End of story. I'll bypass the details. I told you some of them. Buyers defy downturn risk with rush into junk bonds. Junk bonds, crap bonds. That's right. That's what they're doing because they want their dough, and the warning signs are coming out. When this greatest depression hits, it's going to be way worse than the Great Depression. We already have a well over $250 trillion debt bubble, and all the gamblers want to do, because they're not making money in other ways, is to buy junk. Investors have been scrambling to buy the bonds of the riskiest U.S. corporate borrowers as the year draws to a close, underscoring a desperate hunt for yields as interest rates remain rooted near historic lows. Historic lows, you know what that is? That is total
bullshit.
You got it? Total
Bullshit.
No, one more time. Not historic lows. Total disgusting prostitute.
Absolute bullshit.
There you go. That makes it clear. They never made up anything of zero and negative interest rate policy. You never heard of quantitative easing in Economics 101 or graduate school when I was a youth. And how about the repo injections? So there you go. Alarm sounded over $55 trillion in emerging market debt. Developing countries racked up a borrowing spree of $55 trillion of debt by the end of the year in a post-financial crisis borrowing surge that has been the latest, fastest, and wildest in modern history, according to the World Socialist Organization. No. The World Bank. Again, the details are here. Fueled by an era of very low interest rates, total debt has rocketed. It goes on and on and on. Emerging market junk bonds hit record. Junk, capisce? Corporate debt, EM debt, debt. Companies in developing nations sold a record $118.4 billion in high-yield dollar bonds this year and are likely to keep the fastest pace in 2020. With yields of U.S. Treasury bonds and other ultra-safe instruments low, debt investors are seeking higher-yielding alternatives, buying securities issued by Chinese developers, Latin American oil producers, and Israeli drug makers. And it goes on and on to go say on average, Asian yield credit in dollars was yielding 7.6% as of December 17th. So there you go. Where are you going to get that kind of return on your investment? With junk. And Global Watchdog warns of rising risk of shocks in leveraged loans. These are coming from the Financial Times. As influential Global Watchdog has warned that the vast market for leveraged loans has become increasingly vulnerable to shocks in a move that would heighten regulatory scrutiny of the risks surrounding corporate debt. This is the Financial Stability Board said in a report yesterday that the recent rapid growth of leveraged loans credit for lowly rated, more indebted companies has been accompanied by a weakening of protections for lenders that has not been fully priced into the markets. Not been fully priced into the markets. This whole thing is a scam in front of everybody's eyes. But not everyone believes it's going to keep going up because, here we go, Wall Street Journal. Options traders put their money on stock retreat. The cost of bearish options relative to bullish ones has been near the highest levels of the past year. They go on to say, some investors remain cautious despite thawing in trade relations. Quote, there's a signal out there that while we're up at the highs, there's still some kind of concern that we give back some of these gains, said Ling Zhao, an equity derivatives strategist at Cowen. So the betting is starting to bet against this artificially propped up markets with price earning ratios over 26 when about 16 is considered normal. Russia cuts rates for fifth time this year to kickstart growth, all right? More cheap money, more cheap money. Oh, how about Bank of Mexico cuts rates again? More cheap money, more cheap money. The Bank of Mexico cut interest rates Thursday for the fourth consecutive time since August. Japan manufacturing suffers. Okay, one lousy piece of data after another. Chinese state fund bails out troubled lender. And from China's premier, he's quoted as saying in state television that China's economy could face more downward pressure in 2020 than it did this year. Quote, next year, Chinese economic development is likely to encounter greater downward pressure and face a more complex situation, the Prime Minister said. Okay? Now, this is after the so-called wonderful trade deal. The trade deal amounts to nothing more than business media.
That is bullshit.
You got it. Because the markets are up over 28%, the S&P 500, and they've been saying trade pressure all year long. Has nothing to do with it. Fiat Chrysler agrees merger with Peugeot to forge a $40 billion car maker. I mention this because the monopolies keep getting bigger. The whole world has been taken over by monopolies. There used to be antitrust legislation in the United States of America. That's all gone. The Robinson-Patman Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act. Monopolies control everything, and all we are workers for the multinational plantations of Slavelandia. And they're getting bigger and bigger and pushing everybody out. But here's my forecast. Remember, the Greatest Depression is going to hit in 2021. Donald Trump, as I'm forecasting, is going to be the winner, minus a wild card, in the presidential reality show of 2020. They're going to lower interest rates again in the United States to prop up the declining markets by, I'm going to say, March, if not earlier, of 2020. So by this time next year, we'll see near zero to negative interest rates. I'm mentioning this because after then, it goes down. No more cheap dough. All around the world are all lowering interest rates. The central banks everywhere and dumping in cheap money. It's going to run out. Now they're doing fiscal stimulus. That means governments are going deeper in debt to spend more stupid money that they don't have. The United States, by the way, what are we, $23 trillion in debt? Now we have an annual debt of over $1 trillion. And that doesn't include pensions, Social Security, and others. That brings it up to about $220 trillion. So Trump is going to be Herbert Hoover 2021. Herbert Hoover was the Great Depression, 1931. You're going to see more and more antitrust legislation coming in countries around the world when the Greatest Depression hits. That's why I wanted to mention that. Because report finds U.S. corporations paid zero to negative income tax in 2018. Isn't that great? All of us workers on Slavelandia, and boy, did they crack down on us, just us, when that IRS gives us the FUC, you know what, because we didn't pay 25 cents, or you were late on this and they'll steal your house. But the big cats get a free ride. 379 highly profitable Fortune 500 corporations in the United States paid an average effective federal income tax of just 11.3% in 2018, thanks to the tax cuts that Trump gave his buddies and himself. The report also found that more than half of the 379 companies, or 195, paid less than half of the new statutory corporate tax rate of 21%. 56 companies paid effective tax rate of between 0 and 5% in 2018. 91 highly profitable corporations paid 0 or less than negative income tax in 2018. So get back to work. We got to steal your money so we could give it to the military industrial complex and our other buddies, because Starbucks Corporation reaped $4.774 billion in profits in 2018. And guess what? Not only did they not pay any taxes, they got $75 million tax rebate. And Amazon, with the richest guy in the world, Jeff Bezos, yeah, guess what? Amazon, which took in $10.84 billion in profits, was taxed minus 1.2% in 2018. They received $29 million rebate. America, I hear all of this
Bullshit.
about capitalism. Forget about it. Oh, we're going to turn socialist. It's not capitalist. Grow up. It's corporatism with a good degree of fascism dumped into it. The facts speak for themselves, and if you believe the Democrats and the Repulsivekins, then you like to swallow.
Bullshit.
You got it. Hey, here we go. Us older cats. You ready? Americans are at risk of outliving their money. Americans between the ages of 35 and 64, and I got more than that, face a retirement shortfall of $3.8 trillion, with 41% of households projected to run short of money in later life. Isn't that nice? Well, the Bezos get bigger, and the monopolies get wider, and they keep screwing us deeper. It's the American way, and a way going on around the world, but the people are protesting. It's one of our top trends of 2020. Yeah. The New World Disorder. Around the world, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, Chile, Algeria, France, Sudan, South Africa, one nation after another protesting about the rich getting everything and the people getting nothing. But not in America. Don't forget to vote. Hey, they had the debates on last night, but hardly anybody watched them. Only 8.7 million people. Yeah. With about 274 million people over the age of 18 that can vote. So that's like nothing. And that's because you got a bunch of nobodies running. Talking about the protest. Forgot the one in Lebanon. That's right, people taking to the streets, income inequality, corruption, violence, and elites owning everything, and a lot of poverty. New Lebanon premier picked amid protest. Lebanon's president named a university professor and former education minister as new prime minister in an effort to break a political deadlock amid an economic crisis and nationwide protests against the nation's ruling class. But guess what? That was yesterday. Today, protesters blocked roads across crisis-hit Lebanon to condemn the designation of this new prime minister in a divisive vote that sparked uproar among members of the Sunni community. So, more problems going on. And more problems going on in India. Modi bans rallies and silences mobiles as mood darkens over citizenship law. We wrote about this in detail in your Trends Journal. Again, the world's on fire. India, Kashmir, Mali, Niger. One country after another, Cameroon, Guinea. It's an uprising. Indian authorities have banned demonstrations and shut down mobile networks in cities around the country, rounding up scores of protesters as they battle to contain the backlash against citizenship law that favors non-Muslims. Algeria president results spark protests. They had an election there last week. The people are unhappy with it. It's now going on to 45 weeks of protests. One country after another. Income inequality. Unrest cripples Chile's economy. Okay? You see where this is going? And the equity markets are getting higher? Yeah, because monetary methadone to keep the gamblers and money junkies high. Protests slow growth cause vast damage as officials offer stimulus and higher pensions. It's going nowhere. And UN says Israel expands settlements. The UN Minister Envoy said Israel advanced or approved plans for 22,000 housing units in West Bank settlements. Isn't that a nice word? Settlements. We're stealing your land. It's a settlement. You know, there's nobody there. Happy trails to you as the wagons go across the desert. That's what they want to make you believe with these words. And it goes on to say, in 3 years since the Security Council UN Security Council condemned settlements in lands that Palestinians claim as their future state. But I may get banned for saying this because, hey, you may call me an anti-Semite because you know what that is.
Bullshit.
You got it. I'm not an anti-Semite. My last 3 girlfriends were Jewish. There's a lot of garbage that you can't condemn Israel. I could condemn the United States or any other murderous people, but you're not allowed to say anything bad about Israel. Save it. Has nothing to do with the religion. It has to do with the sick people running the show. Just like in America, it has nothing to do with the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. It has to do with the sick freaks, the Democrats and the Republicans running the show. It has nothing to do with Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, one after another, Algeria. It has to do with the sick freaks running a country and a freak show near you. Speaking of which, Pelosi puts off sending impeachment to Senate, leaving trial in limbo. In limbo. Dun, 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 dun. Limbo. Look at the freaks you got over here. How can any self-respecting human being look up to a Pelosi or a McConnell or a Trump or a Clinton or an Obama or a Bush or a Lindsey Graham or a not-so Nancy Feinstein? Yep, it's a freak show. Didn't put it in limbo. Let's get this straight, boys and girls. There is no impeachment. The impeachment doesn't happen until it goes to the Senate and the trial is not in limbo. To say that Trump got impeached is just total
Bullshit.
You got it. And this is going to help Trump. Look, if it hurt, do you think the markets would have been up since the phony impeachment went through? They would be down if it had any negative effect. And speaking of the presidential reality show, Bloomberg launches campaign ground game. Spent $100 million on TV ads. Bloomberg. Stop and frisk Bloomberg. Yeah. Hey, don't like your color. Don't like the way you look. America, the land of the free. We could frisk you any way we want. Bend over. That's right. That's the Bloomberg. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, when it comes up to him running. But right before it, he was all in favor of it. It's a freak show. Maine's Collins announces she will run for re-election. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, said she would seek a 5th term in the Senate. 5th term. These people never worked a day in their life. All they do is suck off the public tit. How about Mr. Smith went to Washington? That's right. Went there, did his deed, and then left. No. they stay all their life sucking off the public tit, stealing your money, doing what they want to get paid off by their corporate pimps that people call lobbyists, and imbeciles and morons call campaign contributions when they do what they're paid to do. That's America. The land of the free, the land of the run by imbeciles. And to me, if you want to follow them, knock yourself out, because they're not for me. And by the way, we'll see you next Friday, because we're going to take a break now. It's Christmas time. So Buon Natale. And by the way, consider giving a gift of peace to Occupy Peace, to stop these murderous wars and bring liberty, love, joy, and beauty back to the human soul. Because without it, you can see where this is heading, especially Trends Journal subscribers. We're heading to World War III. The world is on fire. If this isn't reversed, it's only going to get worse. So consider giving a gift of peace. And as for me, it's the birth time of the Prince of Peace, and he's my kind of guy, the Prince of Peace, and I'm a warrior for the Prince of Peace. Buon Natale.